In 1989, a Hong Kong currency trader held a crisp $100 bill under the fluorescent light of his office. The paper felt perfect, that distinctive cotton linen texture that makes American dollars unique. The watermark was flawless, the microprinting sharp and clear. Every security feature seemed authentic. But something nagged at him. A tiny imperfection in the security thread barely visible to the naked eye. His instincts told him this wasn't right. Days later, his suspicions would trigger one of the most shocking financial scandals in modern history, a counterfeiting operation so sophisticated it would threaten the very foundation of global currency markets. Before you start, please leave a comment and subscribe to encourage us. What that Hong Kong trader discovered wasn't just any counterfeit bill, it was what experts would later call a superdollar. These weren't crude photocopies made in someone's basement. They were near-perfect replicas, so convincing that even seasoned bank tellers and currency experts struggled to detect them. The counterfeiting was so sophisticated that only the world's top forensic specialists using advanced equipment could spot the minute differences. The implications were staggering. If criminals could create money this convincing, what did that mean for the stability of the world's most trusted currency? The US dollar, the backbone of international trade, was under attack. Over the next decade, these fake hundreds began appearing everywhere, from the bustling markets of Bangkok to the exclusive boutiques of Berlin. Currency exchanges in Moscow reported them. Banks in Lebanon discovered them in their vaults. Even financial institutions in London found themselves unknowingly processing counterfeit American currency. The scale was unprecedented. Hundreds of millions of dollars in fake bills were circulating globally, accepted as genuine money by banks, businesses, and individuals worldwide. Each transaction spread the contamination further, threatening to undermine confidence in the dollar itself. The world's financial system was being slowly poisoned by perfectly crafted lies. U.S. Treasury investigators were baffled. Traditional counterfeiting operations left telltale signs: inferior paper, crude printing, obvious flaws. But these superdollars were different. They were printed on genuine cotton linen paper, used the correct optically variable ink that shifted from green to black, and even included proper microprinting that required magnification to read. The security thread was nearly perfect, embedded correctly within the paper. Forensic analysis revealed something shocking. Whoever was making these bills had access to the same industrial-grade equipment used by legitimate government mints. This wasn't the work of small-time criminals. It was a state-level operation with unlimited resources and sophisticated technology. As evidence mounted, investigators reached a conclusion that sent shockwaves through Washington. The counterfeiting operation was being run by a nation-state. Not just any country, but one of America's most isolated enemies, North Korea. The Hermit Kingdom, cut off from global financial systems by decades of sanctions, had apparently turned to the ultimate act of economic warfare, attacking the dollar itself. Intelligence agencies were stunned. How could a backward, impoverished nation produce counterfeits that rivaled the quality of genuine U.S. currency? The answer lay in a shadowy organization operating deep within the North Korean government, known only as Office 39. Deep within North Korea's secretive bureaucracy, a clandestine unit called Office 39 operated like a criminal empire masquerading as a government department. Named after the room where it was allegedly founded, this organization reported directly to the supreme leader himself. Its mission was simple but audacious: generate hard currency for the regime by any means necessary. With North Korea isolated from legitimate international banking, Office 39 became the country's financial lifeline. They trafficked drugs, smuggled weapons, and ran elaborate fraud schemes. But their masterpiece was the superdollar operation, a counterfeiting scheme so sophisticated it would make the regime hundreds of millions of dollars while threatening America's economic security. Creating superdollars required more than criminal ambition. It demanded a sophisticated industrial infrastructure. North Korea had somehow acquired military-grade intaglio printing presses, the same specialized equipment used by the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing. These machines, worth millions of dollars and heavily restricted by international trade laws, were capable of producing the deep, raised printing that gives genuine currency its distinctive feel. The operation also required access to the exact cotton linen paper blend used for real dollars, special security inks, and the technical expertise to replicate every minute security feature. This wasn't just counterfeiting, It was industrial-scale currency replication by a hostile foreign government. Intelligence reports revealed how North Korea acquired their sophisticated printing technology. Through a network of shell companies and intermediaries, they had purchased Swiss-made and German-manufactured printing equipment on the black market. These weren't ordinary commercial printers. They were the same precision machines used by central banks worldwide to produce legitimate currency. The suppliers, either unaware of the end user or willing to look the other way for the right price, had essentially armed North Korea with the tools to wage financial warfare. European authorities were horrified to discover that their own technology was being used to undermine the global monetary system. North Korea's diplomatic network became the perfect distribution system for their counterfeit currency. Diplomatic pouches, protected by international law from search or seizure, became conduits for moving fake hundreds around the world. North Korean diplomats, technically immune from prosecution, carried millions in counterfeit bills to embassies and consulates across Asia, Europe, and Africa. From there, the fake currency entered local economies through carefully orchestrated exchanges. The regime had weaponized diplomatic immunity, turning their foreign service into an international counterfeiting ring. Every embassy became a potential money laundering operation, every diplomat a potential financial criminal protected by international law. The Portuguese territory of Macau became ground zero for North Korea's money laundering operations. With its blend of Chinese sovereignty and international banking laws, Macau offered the perfect environment for washing dirty money. The territory's casinos provided ideal cover. Millions of dollars in cash transactions were normal and questions were rarely asked about the source of funds. North Korean operatives would arrive with suitcases full of counterfeit hundreds, exchange them for chips, gamble modestly, then cash out with clean money. Local banks, either complicit or negligent, processed these transactions without adequate scrutiny. Macau had become the financial laundromat for one of the world's most ambitious counterfeiting schemes. Beyond Macau, North Korea's counterfeit dollars flowed through an extensive network in the Middle East. Lebanese banks, Syrian money changers, and Iranian financial institutions all became unwitting participants in the scheme. The chaos of regional conflicts provided perfect cover for illicit financial transactions. In war-torn areas where normal banking oversight had collapsed, counterfeit superdollars could be exchanged without scrutiny. These regions became testing grounds for new batches of fake currency. If the bills passed inspection in Beirut or Damascus, they were ready for global circulation. The Middle East's complex web of informal banking relationships provided North Korea with multiple pathways to inject their counterfeits into the international financial system. Office 39's counterfeiting operation didn't exist in isolation. It was part of a broader criminal enterprise that included massive drug trafficking. North Korea had become one of the world's largest producers of methamphetamine, manufacturing the drug in state-run facilities with industrial efficiency. The same networks that distributed counterfeit dollars also moved drugs, creating a symbiotic relationship between the two illegal activities. Superdollars were used to purchase raw materials for drug production, while drug profits helped fund the counterfeiting operation. This criminal synergy made North Korea's illicit economy more resilient and profitable, turning the isolated nation into a narco-state with its own printing press. The profits from the superdollar operation served a sinister purpose: funding North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Every counterfeit hundred that successfully entered circulation generated real money that could be used to purchase restricted materials, bribe foreign officials, and finance nuclear research. The counterfeiting scheme wasn't just about economic survival, it was about giving North Korea the financial resources to develop weapons of mass destruction. American dollars, the symbol of U.S. economic power, were being perverted to fund weapons specifically designed to threaten American cities. The irony was as chilling as it was deliberate. The profits from the superdollar operation served a sinister purpose: funding North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Every counterfeit hundred that successfully entered circulation generated real money that could be used to purchase restricted materials, bribe foreign officials, and finance nuclear research. The counterfeiting scheme wasn't just about economic survival. It was about giving North Korea the financial resources to develop weapons of mass destruction. American dollars, the symbol of U.S. economic power, were being perverted to fund weapons specifically designed to threaten American cities. The irony was as chilling as it was deliberate. The sophistication of superdollars allowed them to penetrate the very heart of the global banking system. Major financial institutions unknowingly processed and stored millions in counterfeit currency. Bank tellers, trained to spot obvious fakes, were fooled by the near-perfect replicas. Even counting machines and authentication devices failed to detect the counterfeits consistently. This infiltration of legitimate banks gave the fake currency an aura of authenticity. If a major bank had processed a bill, it must be genuine. The banking system's own credibility became a weapon in North Korea's counterfeiting war, as each successful deposit or withdrawal further validated the fake currency in the eyes of future handlers. Even America's premier intelligence agency struggled to track the superdollar network. The CIA's financial crime experts found themselves playing catch-up with an operation that seemed to anticipate their every move. Traditional methods of tracking counterfeit currency, following distribution patterns, identifying printing signatures, tracing paper sources, proved inadequate against North Korea's sophisticated operation. The fake bills were so well made that forensic analysis required cutting-edge technology and considerable time. By the time analysts confirmed a bill was counterfeit, thousands more had already entered circulation. The agency faced an unprecedented challenge. How do you fight an enemy whose weapons are indistinguishable from the real thing? The superdollar operation represented a new form of warfare, economic attack without military engagement. North Korea had found a way to strike at America's financial foundations without firing a shot or launching a missile. By flooding markets with counterfeit currency, they could potentially trigger inflation, undermine confidence in the dollar, and destabilize international trade. This was asymmetric warfare at its most insidious. A poor, isolated nation using America's own currency against it. Every fake hundred was a tiny act of economic sabotage, designed to chip away at the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. The implications extended far beyond financial crime. This was an attack on American global influence itself. Banking professionals worldwide faced an unprecedented challenge: how to distinguish between genuine currency and near-perfect counterfeits. Traditional detection methods, feeling the paper texture, checking watermarks, examining microprinting, proved inadequate against superdollars. Training programs had to be completely redesigned as security experts raced to identify the subtle differences that distinguished real bills from fakes. Even with advanced detection equipment, identifying superdollars required careful examination by trained specialists. The counterfeits were so convincing that some experts estimated only 1 in 10 was ever detected, meaning the vast majority continued circulating as genuine currency, slowly poisoning the global financial system. As news of the superdollar scheme spread, international financial institutions scrambled to respond. Central banks worldwide issued alerts warning their commercial banks to scrutinize $100 bills more carefully. Currency exchange operations implemented additional verification procedures, slowing transactions but potentially catching counterfeits. The Bank for International Settlements, the central bank for central banks, coordinated a global response to what was increasingly seen as an attack on the entire international monetary system. However, these reactive measures could only do so much against counterfeits that were already in circulation and virtually indistinguishable from genuine currency. The discovery of superdollars triggered a technological arms race between counterfeiters and currency security experts. The U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing accelerated development of new security features, including more sophisticated holograms, color-shifting inks, and microscopic printing techniques. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies suspected that North Korea was continuously improving their counterfeiting technology, staying just one step behind legitimate security innovations. This cat-and-mouse game represented millions of dollars in research and development costs, as both sides invested heavily in gaining the technological upper hand. The stakes were enormous. The credibility of the world's most important currency hung in the balance. In 2005, U.S. authorities struck a major blow against North Korea's money laundering network by targeting Banco Delta Asia in Macau. This small bank had become a crucial node in North Korea's financial operations, processing millions in questionable transactions with minimal oversight. The U.S. Treasury Department designated the bank as a primary money laundering concern, effectively cutting it off from the American financial system. The action sent shockwaves through Macau's banking sector and froze North Korean accounts containing millions of dollars. For the first time, the regime faced serious consequences for their financial crimes, demonstrating that even a nuclear-armed state wasn't immune to financial pressure. China, North Korea's primary ally and trading partner, found itself caught between supporting its neighbor and maintaining relationships with the global financial system. As evidence of North Korean counterfeiting mounted, Chinese authorities faced increasing pressure from the United States and other trading partners to crack down on illicit financial flows. Banks along the Chinese-North Korean border, which had long facilitated trade and money transfers, came under scrutiny. Beijing's response was measured but significant. They began implementing stricter controls on North Korean financial activities while publicly maintaining their alliance. This pressure from their most important patron signaled to North Korea that even Chinese patience had limits. In response to the superdollar threat, the U.S. Treasury undertook the most comprehensive redesign of the $100 bill in decades. The new security features were specifically designed to counter North Korean counterfeiting capabilities, a 3D security ribbon with thousands of micro-lenses, color-changing ink that shifted more dramatically than previous versions, and a redesigned watermark that was virtually impossible to replicate. The Treasury also incorporated security features that were kept secret from the public, ensuring that even if counterfeiters obtained the new bills, they couldn't reverse engineer all the security elements. The redesign cost hundreds of millions of dollars but was deemed essential to maintaining the dollar's integrity and global confidence. The superdollar scandal exposed how North Korea systematically abused diplomatic privileges to facilitate financial crimes. Diplomats who should have been representing their country's legitimate interests instead operated as international criminals, protected by laws designed to facilitate peaceful relations between nations. This abuse of diplomatic immunity created a crisis in international law. How could the global community maintain diplomatic protections while preventing their misuse for criminal activities? Several countries began restricting North Korean diplomatic missions and limiting the number of personnel allowed in their territories. The scandal had turned diplomatic immunity from a tool of peace into a weapon of financial warfare. While the regime profited from counterfeiting, ordinary North Koreans paid a terrible price for their government's financial crimes. International sanctions, tightened in response to both nuclear weapons development and counterfeiting, made life even harder for citizens already struggling under authoritarian rule. Food became scarcer, medical supplies more difficult to obtain, and economic opportunities virtually non-existent. The counterfeiting scheme, designed to provide the regime with hard currency, ultimately contributed to the isolation and impoverishment of the North Korean people. The fake dollars that funded elite luxury goods came at the cost of genuine human suffering for millions of innocent citizens. The superdollar crisis forced a fundamental reevaluation of global financial security. If a small, isolated nation could successfully counterfeit hundreds of millions of dollars, what did that mean for the security of international monetary systems? Central banks worldwide began investing more heavily in currency security research, developing new authentication technologies, and updating their security protocols. The incident also highlighted the vulnerability of cash-based transactions in an increasingly digital world. Some economists argued that the crisis demonstrated the need to move toward fully digital currencies that could be authenticated electronically, making physical counterfeiting impossible. The success of North Korea's counterfeiting operation for over a decade revealed significant gaps in international intelligence and financial monitoring systems. Despite the sophistication required to produce superdollars, Western intelligence agencies failed to detect the operation until counterfeit bills were already circulating globally. This intelligence failure had multiple causes: underestimation of North Korean capabilities, inadequate coordination between financial and security agencies, and the sheer audacity of the scheme that made it difficult to believe. The incident prompted major reforms in how intelligence agencies monitor state-sponsored financial crimes and coordinate with banking regulators to detect unusual currency flows. As traditional counterfeiting became more difficult due to enhanced security features and international pressure, North Korea gradually shifted towards cybercrime as their primary source of illicit revenue. The same Office 39 that had orchestrated the superdollar scheme began investing heavily in cyber capabilities, training hackers to steal cryptocurrency and conduct ransomware attacks. The transition from physical counterfeiting to digital theft represented an evolution in state-sponsored crime, but the underlying motivation remained the same: generating hard currency to fund the regime and its weapons programs. The skills learned from years of sophisticated counterfeiting proved transferable to the digital realm, making North Korea one of the world's most dangerous cybercriminal states. Today, The threat of sophisticated counterfeiting has evolved beyond physical currency to encompass digital assets and electronic payments. The techniques pioneered by North Korea's superdollar operation, state-level resources, sophisticated technology, and international distribution networks have inspired other criminal organizations and hostile nations. Artificial intelligence and advanced printing technologies have made counterfeiting potentially more accessible while also providing new tools for detection. The fundamental lesson of the superdollar crisis remains relevant. In an interconnected global economy, financial crimes by state actors can threaten the stability of the entire international monetary system. The North Korean superdollar scandal remains one of the most audacious financial crimes in modern history, a decade-long operation that generated hundreds of millions in profits while threatening the stability of the world's most important currency. It demonstrated that even the most secure financial instruments are vulnerable to state-sponsored counterfeiting and that economic warfare can be as dangerous as military conflict. The crisis forced fundamental changes in currency security, international banking oversight, and diplomatic immunity protocols. Most importantly, it served as a wake-up call that in our interconnected world, the actions of even isolated rogue states can have global consequences. The age of financial warfare had begun, and the superdollar was just the opening shot.